This meeting is being recorded.
Or 6738, I'm sorry. Okay. All right. So now we only, let's see. What's that E14486? Is that some extension of some sort?
Good morning, Jeff Cox, Portland General Electric.
Hey, Jeff. Thanks for joining. All right. Just want to make sure we're okay. So sounds like Kitty's got the audio figured out there, so we'll go ahead and get rolling. I've got 10:05, Kitty, and then Josh for to bring the meeting to order and get in the session here. So we don't have a whole lot, but we'll jump right into it. Starting with announcements, I'll start with myself, and then we can go down the list with Kitty. So Micah Brown, chairperson of the OUNC. I represent locating on the board.
Good morning, Kitty O'Keefe, Executive Assistant and Outreach Coordinator for the OUNC. Josh Thomas.
Yeah, good morning, Josh Thomas, Executive Director, OUNC.
Thank you. Lee, good morning.
Good morning, Lee Tuminello, City of Portland, representing cities over 25,000.
Andy Crocker.
Yeah, Andy Crocker, waiting appointment, but potentially going to be representing special districts. I'm with Rockwood Water, People's Utility District.
Good morning. Great. Okay, Melanie Lewis.
Good morning, Melanie Lewis with Pacific Power, representing regulated electricity.
Thank you. Mitch.
Morning, everybody. Mitch Burgella representing Cable TV.
You sound like you have a cold there, Mitch.
I lost my voice.
Kevin Hennessy.
Good morning, everyone. Kevin Hennessy here. I'm representing OPUC, Oregon Public Utility Commission. At this point, I am still awaiting appointment. Happy to be here.
Great. Okay, let's see. Jim Walton with Linescape.
Sorry, Jim Walton. I'm with Linescape. We're just a small contractor working both in Oregon and Washington here. As a guest.
Welcome, Jim. And then we have Jeff Cox, PGE. Did I miss anybody?
That's all I'm seeing.
Yeah. Okay.
And we confirm the 1177 number. So. All right, so we'll take a look at the minutes and let's see. Mitch and Melanie. Yeah. I don't think
Hey,
Kitty.
Kid.
Go ahead.
Yes.
I was just going to ask you, so you have this meeting is being recorded by host. Oh, never mind. That's on mine. Okay. Never mind. Oh, goodness me. Go ahead, Micah.
Oh, no, I just, I haven't seen, I don't think I've seen this yet. So. Okay. I'm not seeing any major conflicts or issues. Does anyone else? I think if we're looking for more detail into things, we are now recording the meeting, so. All right. I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes for May. Or, I'm sorry, April.
March.
Not sure.
March, aren't they?
Are they, oh yeah, March. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Is that what it says on here?
Yeah. It's been
March
that
24th.
long.
Okay. That's right.
All right.
What is our requirement for quorum, as far as committee goes? Do we know that, Josh?
I think it's 2. We go back to the policy and procedures manual.
Okay.
And we've got Melanie and Mitch.
That's the only reason I got here, Micah, for you.
I thank you for that. So is that a motion to accept the minutes?
Motion to
I'll
accept the
motion
minutes.
to.
I'd
I'll
second.
second.
Okay. Well, however you want to write that down, Kitty. Write that down however you want, Kitty. And
Okay.
all right. Any further
You
discussion
just
on that?
copy it from the meeting minutes before.
Yeah. Pretty much.
All right, I found it, Mr. Chair. It's quorum of the voting committee members must be present for voting members, defined as a simple majority of voting members, but not less than 2.
All right.
You got it.
Great.
Well, does Micah count?
As a vote? Yes.
Yeah, so we 2. Okay, we good.
Okay. So I hear no further discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, state the same. All right, so we'll approve March's minutes. All right. So for the purpose of this meeting, it really is to go over the survey design request process. And I know we have some newer members here that'll be playing some catch up today. Please just feel free to ask any questions. And excuse me, I see you guys here. I don't see you right here. And so I'm not eye contact with you, but I'll see, I look over here, screen's bigger. But what we're doing is currently right now is just real quick. Our survey process is that you don't dig. Locators and operators have 10 days to do a pre-survey where they mark the utilities and no digging is taking place, but 10 days to mark it for engineers and those that are in the pre-construction planning process. So that's what our pre-survey is. Washington adopted a program that allowed for there to be a facilitation or a fact or information gathering waiting period, essentially, which is a 5-day period where someone calls in an information request. They have 5 days to get information from the operators as far as plats, as-builds, maps, pre-designed stuff of themselves, abandoned facilities, and then they use that to go about, designing for their project. And what we're hoping to do is to alleviate some of those unnecessary pre-surveys that otherwise wouldn't need marks. So that's really what we're doing here is we're trying to bring that number down of overall pre-surveys being called in and marks being placed that don't need to be. So Josh and I had got together. We had some prior language. We looked at the rules. As we thought before, we're going to need to change a few definitions. So can we bring that up so everybody can see that?
Sure
Josh
thing.
and I can, yeah, and this right here is also just rough. We will look to proposing something to the board at the end of this meeting. I'm hoping to have a proposal for the board on this for this new process. It will be rule changes, so please keep that in mind. We'll be adding definitions. Here's something that, first off, is there any questions to the objective here or what we're trying to do? Okay.
I have one. I have one.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thanks, Bucket. You stated that that no excavation is taking place during design locate requests. Is that just a blanket statement across? Because I know design activities also includes at times driving stakes and meeting the definition of excavation. So
yeah, and those are separate. So let me correct myself. The pre-survey, our current pre-survey is a 10-day window where it gives operators the opportunity to go out and mark facilities for a non-dig ticket. So there's no driving monuments, there's no discovery of monuments, driving ground rods, any type of excavation taking place on a pre-survey.
it doesn't say though that you can't
Correct.
excavate on a. It doesn't say though you can't excavate on a design locate ticket.
You're absolutely right, and that's something that I brought up to Josh yesterday when we were going through this, and I said, you know, it does not say anywhere in here that you can't excavate, and so
then we go back to what I'm struggling with is if the OUNC is to facilitate a notification process for excavation, and you're getting into something outside of excavation, I don't know if that's the purview of what the rule making authority is. So it seems like this is a coordination issue. And we can go back to statute for that too.
So currently, again, there's been complaints about a lot of surveys being called in. So let's state why we're here and why we're at the point where we're at before we look at that. Because I think the reason we're here is because there's an unsurmountable amount of survey design requests that everyone understands to this day that they cannot dig on. I don't know how many claims and how many investigations I've done where someone has dug on a survey and, a pre-survey as we call it, and they've been found at fault, because they're not allowed to dig on that. So
no, they can dig on a pre-survey.
Okay, so explain that. I guess they can dig on a pre-survey. The 10 day.
Okay, if we pull up the rule for conversation.
Where are you referring to?
I'm going to be on 27, I believe.
Okay, thanks.
Section 80 as it's
29.
right now.
Yeah. Page 29. So what we have is we have a definition of what a designer is. And we have the word excavator in this.
So what's the definition of an excavator? Or excuse me, designer?
Right.
That's back here.
Right.
So there's nothing specific that says that the designer can't go ahead and excavate. So again, this is going back to if it's presented as a design information request, that's outside of the scope of what the OUNC and the call center should be doing. It's more of a coordination issue amongst the designer and contractors and so forth. And probably if you go back to the Oregon Utility Coordinating Council, You know, there was a lot of design effort and coordination and communication at those meetings. So what I'm getting at is it seems like that this is trying to facilitate something that is outside of the purview of what the OUNC is designed to do.
Okay. All right. So I guess I don't understand what you mean by that. I mean, because our mission is clear on what, you know, we're responsible for, what our charter is.
Well,
and so
it's not the mission, Micah. It's what the OAR
statute gives it. It's what the statute says.
Right. So let's go back to the statute, and the statute says design or
okay. So historically, go all the way back. Let's historically go all the way back to the discussion of this in the beginning, and that was to do away with survey design work because it was not in the purview of the cost of OUNC, and that was the initial discussion that it should be removed.
It's always been part of this discussion. It's just providing marks, or what it sounds like this is trying to facilitate a map and design information that isn't part of what the OUNC is chartered to do.
So what I'm hearing is that your understanding of 952.001.0080 is that it is a 10-day dig ticket.
Can we pull it up on the screen?
So you're saying that our requesting design information, this is operators to respond to notifications, requesting design information. That's our rule, right? That's the rule.
Can we put the statute up on the screen?
Which statute? I mean, the one that
for the OUNC. Under the duties section.
13, page 13. So just before we do this though, Kevin, you're saying that our survey design, that the way we have it in our book, is a 10-day dig ticket.
No, I'm not. I'm trying to figure out where this scope of design information requests fits into the objective of what the OUNC is, and that is to regulate the notification and marking of underground facilities to prevent damages to facilities. The rules, insofar as practical, shall be consistent with the Oregon Utility Coordination Council Standards Manual of 1995, which also included a scope of requesting design locates for 10 days. What this is proposing, the new thing that you're proposing here, is to use the call center to facilitate design information that doesn't include marking of underground facilities.
They're not facilitating anything but providing a contact. We're going to put in a rule that is required by operators to provide a contact to OUNC, not a call center, the OUNC, because we have to regulate the notification and the marking of underground facilities. That's the point of what we're doing.
For marking facilities, but for requesting design information, that's something that shouldn't be, I just don't know. I just don't see how it fits.
I think it's a necessary.
Using the one call center not to mark facilities. We've had examples of that in the past where someone wanted to use it for wildfire mitigation as a point of contact for all utilities. Someone wanted to use it for overhead electrical awareness. That's outside of the purview. This looks like, as it's being presented, something outside of the scope of what the OUNC is, and that is to actually give notification for marking of facilities.
The way I read it, it does apply if it's the notification and marking, especially in the design review stage, there is marking involved, and it's all a precursor to the excavation. It's all a part of the process. I could run this by the DOJ if there's still concern that it doesn't fall within our purview, but the way I'm reading it, it does.
Well, if they're going to be using the one call center and not requesting marks, but design information for contacts, how does that fit? That's the question.
As a precursor to the marks, because the design information request is necessary as a part of the design review or the design, I'm getting mixed up in my terminology, the DRS, there's DLR, design locate request. So it's all part of the same process. The design locate request actually provides marks in the field, and the design information request is a part of that because the DLR requires a DIR. So it's all part of a holistic process.
I can agree with that.
Best practices standpoint, I mean, I think CGA, promotes it, and I think, we've got 3 other states that, but I understand that, we are a different agency, a different type of agency. We have we have legislation here that, in my opinion, puts it in the purview, but I guess we'll agree to disagree with that, Kevin. These are conversations that I'd like for us to have, right out of the gate, because we are literally on the home stretch.
Yeah, that's why I'm bringing it up, because there's been an abuse of this service to get more things out of safety in terms of, using the one call center. And if it gets to, where we're, facilitating design information, exchange of that information, that isn't part of what the statute says, we're stepping out of the bounds, and really are taking away something that the OUCC has traditionally done and is fighting to do, is maintain a relevance of coordinating information. So that is the—
How did coordinating information turn into marks is my question. So if we look at the rule as it sits, how did that get in our rules then? Because in the fact that it is in our rules, and we can make it a determination, I think everybody on this call would say that you cannot dig on a free survey. I think that's how UCC, that's I mean, if we had a representative there, if Scott was here or whoever, I think that would be the consensus, is that you can't dig on it.
Yeah, and I see that in the rule now, but what I'm getting at is if designers are using it to get marks and not need marks, okay, that's something that is outside of that the OUNC should be facilitating, the way I'm reading the statute. If they're using the one call center to not get marks for design, then they need to use another avenue to get the information.
And so what stops designers? The only way they can get that information is to use the current rule, which is calling in a location.
They participating in OUCC meetings where, facility operators are announcing their projects,
Sure, but it's not happening.
The one call center is not the one-stop shop for—
That doesn't matter. That does not matter. We are dealing with an issue. We can't just ignore the issue. So we're at a state right now. We're at a position right now where we have to try and do something about what is being brought to the board, as this needs to change.
Yeah, and if it's outside of the purview for facilitating design information that doesn't need marks, that's outside of the scope. They need to figure out another way to coordinate with the people to get the information they need,
or push for legislation.
Well, if again,
that's what we're going to get. You know what I mean? If we keep stonewalling, those that come into this committee and bring their testimonies based upon, then that's what's the end result it's going to be. So I'm good either way. I just know we have a problem, and I've explained this over and over and over. you know, as the representative for locating on the board, this is the system, our laws and everything, it caters with an absolute disregard to operators, caters to excavators with a disregard to operators and their resources. So is it within the board's purview to look at that and say, okay, or do we need legislation in your opinion, Kevin, to change that so that it is within our purview to kind of set some guidelines for that? Because from what I'm seeing,
as I've stated before, I'm not able to comment on any proposed legislation. It's not how a state agency interacts with the governor's office. So that's our policy. So you know, bringing up legislation, there are other avenues, Micah, that designers can get that information. Okay, it exists, and my question is funneling it through the OUNC for non-marks, for design mark, is outside of what this body is intended to do.
okay.
I get best practices. I understand all that, but I've seen it before where, you know, the board asks the one call center, or they, you know, discuss rules that are outside the purview, and it really stomps on, you know, it's just out of the lane. Sorry, Josh, go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. I think it sounds like we're at an impasse with the disagreement. So why don't I just run it by Johanna and the DOJ and get their ruling on it? We can still review this today, and then I will report back to the committee on their opinion.
I'd also like to understand some more of the options that designers use in order to get information. I think, you know, that's why I wish we had a little bit more of a balanced board here with that perspective. So, you know, it would be good to understand what the actual process is that they actually use in order to get design information that doesn't require marks. And it does exist, and to not recognize that, I don't think we're sitting in a good spot.
Right. Well, I work in the industry, okay, and it's non-existent. So you're outside looking in, I'm inside. So it's non-existent. I can guarantee that. That's the reason we are where we're at with this. But for the, you know, we'll agree to disagree on this, and then, you know, we can push anything to the DOJ all we want, but when it comes down to it, it's what the board decides. So we have a motion to move forward with language. I will definitely bring this, and it'll be good discussion for the board. I hope everybody gets involved with it, because it is, I think it is within our purview, and it gives, it's providing something there that's, this should be a best practice for everyone. So what I'm trying to say is the DOJ is not the be all end all when it comes to decisions for this board, but they are good for guidance. So does anyone else have anything for, or any thoughts on the DLR request process or the survey process?
Andy Crocker has his hand up.
Okay, Andy.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that, you know, we're a small agency, and a lot of times the only way we know a big project is going on is these pre-designed surveys. You know, they come in and that's our first contact. And whether that's the agency not understanding that we exist or just not able to reach out to us, that's how we engage with them and provide them information. The other thing, I know I'm kind of late to the game, but was there any discussion on limitations of the area to be produced for a pre-design survey? Some of the ones we've received they span miles and miles. And for our guys to go out to address that sometimes takes more than 10 days.
I'll get to you, Lee. I want to try to address that. I actually invited someone to committee today. I won't name the company, but I was speaking with them yesterday. They called in a 2,000-foot locate for monuments. And I showed up on site with my locator just to meet with him. And he said, and this guy's really, you know, rude. I know the person, not personally, but I mean, I've seen his name. He's called in a lot of, he works for an engineering firm. And he's like, yeah, he just hung up on me. I called him. He hung up on me. Thought it was a locator. And then, you know, we got to talking a little bit. He's like, you know, really, honestly, all we're doing is digging. I know we're going to be digging over here, but, you know, when we actually go to start doing more work, we're going to need, you know, more marks. So I just called in for the whole thing. So, yes, and there's no limitation on that. And that's something that we're going to be addressing. I think Andy's, hopefully we can get a limit to that. And the reason I bring this situation up is because in that hopes, if we move to 750, which we do have a motion to try to work some verbiage around 750 feet as being a max distance to be called in. If we did that, he probably wouldn't have called in a second ticket for the rest of it. He would have just called in the area from where he was at. So hopefully if we can get to that point and put some perimeters around that will help us. Stu Crosby was served on this board prior to me, and he was a designer. Worked for an engineering firm, and a wealth of knowledge. And I was thinking about getting him involved as well. So maybe he can give us some insight on that. Lee?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I just wanted to echo what Andy was saying. While the city of Portland isn't a smaller agency, we still have some of the same struggles. And a lot of times, you know, requests for information is viewed at the city not as a separate request. It's part of the entire request. So I don't, I respectfully disagree with Kevin's perspective, but I understand the need or desire to want to run it through the DOJ. But this would probably help with numbers and enforcement. So I hope we consider moving this forward.
Mitch, did you have your hand up? Thanks, Lee. Mitch, did you have your hand up and then pull it down?
I have it a little bit. I don't want to disagree with Kevin because when a design is needed from me, there are different avenues. They come to me. I'm not, you know, so most of the time when they need to know where this utility is and all this and that. And it all depends who's doing the project, if it's a private company, if it's city or whoever it's the entity that does that project, they have different, there's different avenues that they can find out, you know, what's my design in the ground, what I have in the ground. And, you know, I always receive emails from cities giving us FYI, this project sits on, this is who is on, and that's what's going to happen. And it's going to be done by this. And most of the time we have meetings almost every day with builders, with cities and stuff like that. And that's where they got all the design from us, you know. So there's a few avenues over there. Not sure how, you know, but I can understand the issue that we have here with you know, trying to get them all in one and get all the information. So I'm kind of, you know, I'm kind of between, kind of hard for me to pinpoint exactly what's the best way.
Well, it's either we leave it currently, which, you know, everyone's calling in free surveys. We did provide the data. So, I mean, the data was, it was a 60% decrease in survey design locate because they didn't need locates. They just needed information. They don't have the context. They don't have the you know, it's easier just to call that in. So, I mean, that's kind of where we're at.
Okay. Yeah. I just want to throw that out, but, you know, when they need a design, I'm just talking about me. When they need a design from me, they usually come through a letter from the city, or because every If it's a private company that does something, usually they need to go through the city to get approved prior to anything else, and the city will provide every utility that it's in that area. And that's how, city will have every, contact for every utility that they know about, that they work with all day.
I don't know if you guys, you guys don't call in surveys, Mitch. You guys call in
No.
3,500 foot locates. You guys call in half-mile locates, and our guys got to go locate it 3 times. So I don't know what you're talking. Everybody's being called in, buddy. But I understand what you're saying. I mean, you guys are, there's a coordination there to get information.
So let me put you this: before we call in those long locates and how you want to call them, believe me, 6 months prior to that, I get an email from the city saying this is what project is going to come in, and this is what's going to happen, and this is the contacts who's doing this. And actually they have hearings and stuff like that. We get those emails from them if we want to go there and participate, usually all the time. And I'm getting a piece, an attachment from the city all the time if I have anything to comment or anything like that. And I have to put my name and my address if I want to, so whoever's building or doing a project over there will get a contact for whatever utilities.
I know the process, you guys. I mean, it's a little different in my opinion, but from an actual designer. But still, you sit in the same arena with that. So, Kevin, you had your hand up, and we'll get to Andy.
Oh, I just wanted to also bring up to Andy's point, on the long locates. There's a difference between business rules and what we allow one call concepts to do in order to process locates and OARs. So business rules, can be changed within the scope of the existing contract. Rulemaking, is a different aspect and may or may not necessarily be needed in order to determine how the one call center operates. So I know that there are boundaries on the ITIC NXT. I'm not familiar if there's boundaries on the scope and length for design locates. It'd be a great question to ask, or at least get some more information on. But that would help manage some of the long locate issues.
I don't understand any of that. I don't. And the reason I say that is because the call center, what they have is a 750. They have a 750 foot rule. Whereas if I set a pole right here and then I go 800 feet and I say I'm going to set a pole 800 feet, they make that 2 tickets. Now, if I've got a pole that's right here and I got a pole that's 500 feet away, and then I put another one 900 feet away, as long as that 500 foot is within that 750 feet of that 900, then that's all 1 ticket. So someone can stagger those poles, along for a mile, or delineators for a mile. And, there's nothing that's not a rule. That's just, that's not law. That's just a rule that they follow.
Business rule.
Yeah. And
okay. So,
and I don't know how that's going to affect when someone calls in from point A to point B. We want all that marked, or they put that polygon on there. That doesn't affect that. It's just spot locations, if that clears that up. Andy, you had your hand up?
I did, but I think my question's been answered.
Okay. All right. Well, it's been a good discussion. I know that there's some varying differing of opinions here on things. I think we all share a common, hopefully we all share a common understanding and understand that we've gotten to this point because it is an issue. It's something that's been allowed in that, yes, even though the statute says that, we are to, parallel OUCC, at the same time, where's the manual at, and was survey design work, obviously it was placed into that initially. And we're, quite a ways away from that at this point. So that discussion, do we remove it or do we, do we keep it? So
It's in there from the beginning, so it's available for reference.
So this is Melanie. I just have a few comments. Pacific Corp services 6 different states. And within those 6 different states, there is a different process for the pre-design locates. And the common theme within all those 6 states is the engineer calls the one call center. And then from there, they actually get the contact name for the person that can help them get maps to begin with. So with us transitioning, the OUNC transitioning to this process that Micah is putting together, I think it's spot on. And I think it's something that we need to go forward with, because not only do we have our contract locators locating for us, but we also have internals as well. And I will tell you, my internals get so frustrated with when locates are called in and they know it's a survey. And a lot of the times, the engineers just want to see what's on the ground because they are being lazy. So I'm all for this process. I think it is going in a good direction. And we can eliminate some of those locates that don't need to be completed with just a phone call to the actual companies.
which is a regulation of marking. Thank you, Melanie.
That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, thank you. And that's a regulation of the marking and notification of the utilities. I feel it falls within that purview, and it's the same as if marks are placed or excessive marks placed. You know, we almost had legislation being pushed on us with that a while ago, with the removal of marks, and they were pushing that on us. So if that's where that legislator was, you know, or that representative was pushing it and saying it should fall on us, then, I mean, we've got to take that into consideration and say, okay, well, even though we don't have legislation for that, we can go ahead and put some things in rule that can help the situation, so we're not having to change it or having to go to legislator over it. Namely, I mean, one of the things.
Right, and we are damage prevention. That's what our board is about, damage prevention, right? So why is it an issue to actually contact those people that are, you know, representatives of the company to take out the locating issues, because we have the locating issues for the long locates for surveys, which honestly don't need to be completed until digging. So why can't we just, you know, contact those people and go in that direction? And more than likely, they're probably already going in that direction, because there's going to be a job that is created, because the engineering is just the prelim. So more than likely, they're going to be contacting Pacific Corp saying, hey, we need to have a job to install this or upgrade this or whatever it may be. But it's not quite there yet. So why put the paint on the ground?
Yeah. So what we have is, thanks, Melanie. I mean, that's a great perspective from an operator. It really is, because it's really the same, and it echoes it across, I think, anyone that's has that responsibility to go out there and put those marks down on the ground, or pay for that locator to go out there and put those marks on the ground. So it's tough, and our locators in the field, and you know, yes, I work in the industry, and I've always taken that hat off when I step into this, you know, in this committee or the board, and I feel I've done a really good job with that, honestly. But you can't ignore it. I'm not the one that steps in this committee and says, hey, this needs to change. One of the biggest voices comes from Avista Gas, and she joins us periodically and says these are ongoing issues. I think that most of the issues that are brought to my attention come from Southern Oregon, that Douglas County down there, and south of Lane County, that area down there, Jackson. Really pushing for us to help them out with some things. So we have a motion. We had a motion to draft some language to move forward with the DLR process to mirror Washington's process. We drafted some language. Can we review that language real quick and let me kind of guide us through it? If there's any objections to it, I'd like to make some changes, and then I'd like to bring it to the board's, attention that we are working on some language. This is the language. I'm not looking for a motion to put this into play because we are waiting on DOJ feedback. But this is the language that we're proposing. That way it gives an opportunity for other board members to see it. It gives the public an opportunity to have it attached to the minutes to look at it, so that they can provide comment in the following meeting. So what we have is we have two, and maybe we could wordsmith some of these definitions a little better, but maybe anybody's thoughts. We will have to put a definition in, we believe, for the design information request and the design locate request in our definitions. I'm sure that I initially took a stab at, but I'm nobody special, and quite frankly, this could be written a lot better. But if we, is there any way we can get, well, if you've got your book open and you go to page 20, I think it's 29. Yeah, you can follow along with this. It's got, this is our current rule, the way that it is in the manual, of course, on page 29 of our manual. You're pulling that out, Josh. Kitty. So it's Josh that's got it. Okay, so this is it. We made a revision in 2019. Everyone remembers that revision, and we did add to this. We added 2 down there at the bottom. Everything else from C to 1, everything under 1 there, and it's 3 subsections. That was original. We added 2 just to explain that the large survey design need to fall in the same scope of a large project. So pre-construction meetings, locate schedules, marking schedules, things like that. It wasn't in there. We felt it was necessary to make sure that it was in there. So that's kind of a little history on it. It does say designer, and we have a definition for designer. It also says excavator in it, which we're going to be removing excavator all around within that rule, because it's not, we're not excavating. So I think it was just a reference of a word term to follow the rest of the rules, really, with excavator, because it's excavator across the board in all other rules, what the duties of an excavator are and an operator are. But we'll be removing the word excavator and putting designer in, so it flows. Yeah, Josh, can we just take a look at it real quick here? So if you look right there under replace with the following here, this is just an opening. This explains the process as clear and concise as we possibly can without expanding it and making this rule turn into 2 pages long. This is how it's explained to individuals when they look at a manual on how to do it. And Josh and I went through the manual, I wouldn't say with a fine-tooth comb, maybe a brush or so, but went through it and it looked fine. I don't see any reason why we would need to change their process of how they do it in Washington from a call center standpoint, and that the mechanics of that. It all looks great, but it does in that manual, it does reference this definition quite a bit. So throughout. Of course, we'll change it and it'll say Oregon and everything else for all of the aesthetics and stuff. And after going through it, like I said, there's no reason to change anything other than that. So right here, and this is something that Josh and I wanted to have everyone take a look at. It's a designer's responsibility to request maps, drawings, blueprints, and/or other information from the utility operators directly. Upon receipt of the design information request, the DIR, within 5 business days, the operator of underground facilities must. Now that follows and flows just like our old rule was. And then down here, there's 3 things. Provide and maintain current contacts for design requests with the utility, Oregon Utility Notification Center. We did have call center at first, but it's really us, and that we're the ones that they need to keep that information because we can go with another vendor at any point. So we did make that little change. But Josh and I were talking, and should that be right there or should it be down below? Because maybe it should say stay current with contacts, because yeah, every time someone calls in a DIR, that the operator must maintain current contacts. So it was kind of just a play on where it should be. I think it sits well there just because it's saying what the operator is responsible for, without putting that down below, without going through the whole thing and then down below saying, oh, here's an insert of maintain current contacts. But it doesn't matter to me where we put it. B would be provide, of course, the designer with the best description available, including construction drawings, facility maps of all underground facilities. That's gonna cover what's abandoned, and a lot of times that's irrelevant, but sometimes it is. So. And then, of course, contact the person requesting the design information to meet on site if they can't exchange it electronically or find other means of doing it. The call center, we as the call center, we're not facilitating any of that. All we're doing is providing contacts, just like if someone were to call in for a locate, they get the operator's number. On the bottom of the ticket, it'll show what the contacts are for each utility operator notified, the member notified to locate. So that's all it would be. It would be a contact, maybe an email address for the operators or their engineering department, whoever they want it to go to, so that they have a direct number so they know where to call to get that information. I know that some operators may even just put their contractor's number on there, like our number, and then we can provide information from that way. But it'll really be up to the operator on that. So it's, and then you scroll down there, Josh, and then we'll move right into after the designer notifies of a design locate request. So when can I do that? I think it's pretty obvious. You've got to put in the DIR. It says that at the beginning first, and then you can make it a DLR, and then it tells you the parameters. So mark within 24 inches of the outside lateral dimensions. 10 days to do it. Nothing's changed with that. That's the exact verbiage that was from the original rule A there. And that was my intention. I did not want to change the rule to where it was completely foreign. I wanted it to look like the rule before, so that it does make sense to those that have read it for years and are working with it. And then, of course, we have our designer on the multiple sites. And we put this in here as no excavation can take place on either a design information request or the DLR, just because it was never in there before. And according to, as Kevin had brought up earlier, no, it never said you couldn't dig. It was just an understanding. I don't have the OUCC's manual in front of me. I'm going to need to get that. That says, that gives us a little more information on survey design work and what the expectation was for that. And I need that. So, is there any objections or anything that somebody would like to see in here? Does it cover our bases from what you understand? All right, we hashed it out and slept on it, and I know I've slept on it a couple of times, and you know, I think
it looks great.
Okay.
So I just have one concern though. So A, right there, provide and maintain current contacts for design requests with the OUNC. Who will be maintaining that?
The operator.
Okay,
Operator.
but OCC is the one that's going to send out that request, right?
They're gonna send the.
Yeah. Yes, they are. Yeah. I'm answering my own question. So it's what they normally do is every year they send out a information update, you know, per code that you have, and that's where you update all of that information. So essentially, the design request, the utility will actually, you know, have their own contact, and however they want to have their process with designs. So each and every code that you have, you can actually have a different contact for it. So provide and maintain. So what?
Our thought on that.
So my question to, go ahead.
No, our thought was that if it wasn't in here somewhere, that's our problem now, is that there is maybe phone calls being made, but they're getting the runaround. So if it's in rule, we figured it would have more teeth and require operators to work with designers a little more. But I'm game for however we want to change it.
No, I like that. I think that's great because I think that needs to happen because it's frustrating for engineers that don't know the process. They don't know Pacific Corp's process. They don't know the gas company's process on how to actually go about designing. And so this would be their first, more than likely their first step. So I think this is great, and it gets them set up and going in the right direction.
Yeah, and whether this actually just happened in Idaho this week with me. Well, that's good.
So I think it's a good thing.
And the last thing I wanted to say when it comes to this, Josh, is that the DOJ will clean it up for us. They'll tell us if they want it down below somewhere, or if they feel it's okay, it's right here. See, that's the one of the benefits that I liked when I was doing the rules before, is that was the help that I liked from them. There's a lot of things that I didn't agree with, but we went with the majority of some things, and they actually prompted us to add stuff that was in another rule to another rule just to have it more teeth and back it up. So I'll be interested to see what they think about it, because that first question is, does it fall within the purview? And then second question is, let's take a look at our language for us. Now we'll probably get a 3-month turnaround on that, but hopefully hopefully we can get it faster. But okay, so not hearing any objections to it. I just want to stay on task with what the board knows what we're doing in this committee, and that is drafting language for this process, because that was what the motion was for. So I will take that report to the board. Unless somebody wants to add something, I will take that report to the board and let them know that this is what we've got. We'll run it by the DOJ, and if anyone would like to comment and give us some insight, we would welcome it at that time. All right, hearing none. So again, good discussion, and I hope we can get somewhere with this. Moving on, we do have our tabled items, but first we do have the underground facility. This is something, Kevin, we were hoping that you would help us with a little bit. I know that you said that we can go outside of the statute and get around that definition so that we can redefine what underground facilities are in the OARs, so we don't have to change legislation or move to do that. So I'd like to get your thoughts on that. That's interesting.
No, I was restating something that Alba made, a comment made during a meeting. And so I would defer to her on your specific question, but that's nothing to get around the statutes. You know, how terms are defined by rule, or excuse me, how things are managed or operated around by rule. So great example of that would be sidewalk, road, and ditch maintenance. And the OUNC went to great lengths in 2016, maybe, I don't remember, maybe it was 2014, where they took the terms that are in the statute, but they also expanded on what those mean per the rule. So that's a great example of doing that.
Okay. Yeah, I think I read that, and right.
So sidewalk, road, and ditch maintenance wasn't defined in our OARs, but it is shared in the formation with the OUNC and what exemptions that the legislature accepted at the time of the OUNC. And what the OUNC did thereafter is define exactly what ditch maintenance is, sidewalk, you know, and provided a little bit more of a parameter as to what that term means.
Yeah, and you know, I had just had a scenario where this had happened for me, and what that does is it doesn't muddy the water. What it does is it doesn't help anything unless those that are aware of it know it so they can enforce it or use it. Because right now, anyone that's doing road or ditch maintenance feel that they look at excavation and they have to call a ticket in. I had to look at this 2 or 3 times to figure out how. And then I said, I don't get it. So I called Scott, and Scott said, well, it's really referencing what an excavator is. Then going back and using the language that says ditch and sidewalk, then going, there's actually a definition for ditch and sidewalk. And I'm going, okay, I didn't even think about that. So then so basically you're going round about back to, it's not clear, but who says it needs to be clear, right? As long as it's in there and it can be enforced, that's all that matters. So if we can do something similar, that's fine. And I don't mean to sound like I hope I'm making sense here, but if so, let me give a quick example. Road maintenance. A lot of it's just, I think anybody that is in this industry is probably more prone to the terminology than I am, but are keen on it. But they're just pulling up the asphalt down to the base rock and then just overlaying it, or just digging down where the holes are, or the sinkholes are, and they're kind of that stuff technically is considered excavation. But in rule, not in definition, in rule, if you move to the rule, it specifically states sidewalk, road, and ditch maintenance, less than 12 inches. So then you're going, well, I guess I don't understand. Does go to the definitions, and the definition actually has on page 21 a long definition for sidewalk, road, and ditch maintenance. Very, very out of place, in my opinion. But nonetheless, I've been on the board for 7 years and I never knew that this rule existed. That someone that's doing ditch maintenance, that's not digging less than 12 inches, or that's digging less than 12 inches, just taking the top off, does not need to have a locate. Because of the way this rule is designed, and how you're supposed to find the interpretation of it. So back to what I'm saying is that if you weren't there when you drafted the rule, or weren't part of that process, you may not even know. Obviously, I didn't. And that's embarrassing. So I'm not saying, Kevin, that it was a bad practice to do that to avoid legislative, change or anything like that. I'm just saying
that's not the point, Micah. It was to clarify what that term meant, and they put it in definition. That the standards manual and the rule isn't designed to be a public awareness document to train people on the rule.
But that's what this is. That's what you guys did when you did this. I'm not saying you. I don't know if you're involved, but that's what this is. That's public awareness. That's what you're talking about right here. That's what took place. That's why it's confusing. So you say that's not the point. What was the point of this rule changing, Kevin? What was the point of adding this definition in here? To change the purview, to change the outline of what an excavation is within 12 inches.
It was actually to clarify what boundaries and what limits were needed in order to protect underground facilities. I think ditch maintenance does a wonderful job doing that. Sidewalk maintenance does a wonderful job in doing that. So how it gets translated and when people incorporate the rule, but not just rule the best practice to achieve compliance with the rule is outside of what you're asking me to do. I mean, there's professional people that specialize in adult education, and I'm sure that's something that could be incorporated in a learning module or terminal or enabling objectives. So to me, there was no limit. It was very gray and unclear as to what that term was, and I thought the board did a good job of putting a parameter on those three terms. That was the purpose.
I think any movement towards changing something for the better when there was issues, absolutely. I would agree. I think when we look at this, it's tough to. So what I'm saying,
how it gets applied is something else. So,
but it's okay. As a rule writer, it's as a board, it's our responsibility to make sure these rules are clear, concise, and they don't get lost over time. And so, trying to do our best. And to me, sidestepping a statute to write rule on top of a rule that it just muddies the water. I guess it really does. And so, I'm not opposed to it.
No, I think there's some outreach that can be done, and certainly, how things are presented in the standards manual as far as FAQs adds another plain language standard, to help communicate. But really, when we're looking at rule, there is specific structure and criteria that needs to be met and followed. And I understand the plain language bit that you're speaking to, but there's other ways to communicate what the expectation is for compliance.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I do, and I think the board does a pretty dang good job of that. But not everyone is, so not everyone is privy of that information or that learning, and they have to look at this manual. They have to look at this as, and I'm not gonna drag this out any longer. I mean, I could go to the rule specifically where it states it. You would, like I said, when I looked at it, I didn't think that would be a definition. I didn't think I had to go back to the definitions to get a definition for, that, because there wasn't a quotation in the rule. It wasn't like, hey, look, you need to reference this. But either way, I would hope to try to avoid any confusion as to what an anchor is, in how it differs from an underground facility in the way that statute has it.
When reading rule, it's the standard practice is to put the scope and then followed by the definitions and then into the rule. And so just by practice in navigating through rule application, rule interpretation, it's always good to go back to the scope, and then the definitions, just to make sure that you're on track. That's how we do it.
All right. So I guess we're right here where we need to make kind of a decision here. I don't want this to haunt us in this committee here. We need to make a change to it. So I would implore anybody to grab the torch on this and see if we can draft some language. The problem with this is that in order to do this the way that we did the other one, or the way that Kevin is mentioning, is that it would have to be in a rule. So we'd have to find it in rule and then give it a different term and then redefine that term. And I think we mentioned, or my thought was obviously different than facility. Utility would be a better term. Whatever word we choose, the definition of it must mean an active, I'd say I guess we maintain anchors. Jeff, you got any thought on that, or has anybody got any thought on that? I really like to move us forward on this one. So what I'll do is, I can't see any hands. This thing keeps going away from me. If you've got a hand up, feel free to chime in there. Okay. I'll take any, outside of committee, I'll take any advice on language or anything like that. If somebody wants to really dive into it and say, hey, look, how can I help with this? And for those that are new to this rule came about because we had an operator drilling, and they drilled into a power pole anchor, or it was a telecommunication anchor, someone's anchor. And then they said, well, within statute, that's considered, you have to locate that facility. It's an underground facility according to statute. So that's kind of where we're at with it. You really can't locate an anchor. An anchor is really a grandiose ground that really makes things chaotic to try to even locate anything around a pole when there's an anchor next to it. So,
Mike,
yeah.
I'm a little bit concerned with this one. Because no matter how you're looking to, now we're gonna get into, are we gonna locate poles? Is a stop sign considered? Maybe not, but for one mistake, we want to change the whole,
Well, I think
it's kind of, I'll be honest with you. I mean, it's a pole, correct? It's in the ground. Are we gonna put all colors around the pole just to let them know, hey, the pole goes in the ground? Come on, I don't know. It doesn't make too much sense to.
No, that's why we're trying
to put an anchor.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why we're trying to put some language in here that kind of says, hey, look, it's not a locatable underground facility. And I think, we look at what locatable underground facility is, and maybe that's the route we want to take.
Yeah.
And you just reference back to the rules, or I mean, the definitions is what's locatable. And then you can easily do, get around it that way. I'm just thinking out loud, guys. I understand.
I know facilities is used a lot in here as far as all the, transmission lines and that sort of thing. But it's also kind of infrastructure of whatever agency it is. I mean, that kind of encapsulates everything as well. I don't know if that verbiage would be helpful, because that would kind of also relate to anchors and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just like you, spitballing a couple of things out there.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Andy.
Yeah, sorry, Mike, Jeff here. I couldn't find my hand symbol, but just to comment on that, I'd have to go back and read that and do a little more thorough review of the rules myself. But I know initially when this incident occurred, anything protruding out of the ground, we don't provide depth of facilities. That's not a requirement under the rule. And so it would be extremely difficult to, in the particular circumstance you were reviewing, to give an accurate depth of that anchor that was disturbed during excavation. And so that was a confusing point. That's just the one topic I recall having conversation with folks.
Mm-hmm.
But happy to provide any input, and I'll do some reading and take it offline with you at a later date.
Yeah,
Appreciate that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Anyone else as well? I think you're onto something there, Andy. In statute, it has it as underground facilities, and then what facilities mean. So I say if we are going to look at it, it would be locatable facilities. I think we would probably want to look at it may be we have to change every rule, and put that in there instead of that. But it's a quick fix. We did a lot of little revisions like that in the 19 revision. So it's not.
I'd like to bring up a point that we seem to be focused on an electric facility, but there's an awful lot of other anchoring type things that are related to other underground facilities that fall under this purview too. So it's if we're changing rule because of a claim, and it's not really related to preventing damage, or we're not seeing where's the data behind this, or is this a systemic issue where anchors and thrust blocks are blown out of are getting damaged because they're not marked. There just seems to be a lot more questions about that as it relates to bridge. And
yeah, I see where you're going there with that, Kevin. I think too we have nothing in the rules that say transformers, above ground transformers, or above ground utility facilities. I mean, there's nothing that says that, yeah, they're visible, but sometimes they're not, so some of them are flush and some things are covering them. I know a lot of cable TV PEDs and phone PEDs, they get creative with, whoever's got the cheapest design, not to like, okay, I'll redact that, but they get pretty creative and they can be hidden. So more of an elaboration on what the definition of a locatable underground facility is and what we're regulating as far as marking of that is what my thoughts are on it. It wasn't just anchors, and I apologize if I didn't speak more about the more broader aspect of it, but I do agree with Kevin in that respect in terms of so where I'm at is that if this was a claim and this was that driller or whoever had hit this, which there may be no credit to any of that. I don't know. I'm just using it as an example. If it gets taken into a courtroom, how would they view it? And if they viewed it as an underground facility based on the statute for then, and they won that case, we would be responsible for marking those anchors. So, Andy?
Oh, I was just, sorry, my phone's ringing. I was just reading the underground facilities definition, and it does indicate, poles and anchors that are underground attachments, but is that what you guys were referring to?
Well, I think we don't have a second definition that says what's locatable. That's our issue, is that what's a locatable utility? What are we trying to ensure gets marked? Or what are operators required to mark? That falls within our purview of regulating what's notified of what's being marked.
There is a definition for locatable and unlocatable.
Okay.
It's provided in statute, and it's also provided in the OAR since 1995.
Okay, so what's your perspective on that then, Kevin? Do we have it in rule?
For what?
Well, you just said that we have locatable. In your opinion, would that suffice to defend whether or not it's locatable, or why, or I'm sorry, get mixed up here. What the operator must do.
Well, there's 3 options. 1, provide marks. If it's unlocatable, they have the option to provide best information available. And the 3rd option they have third option. I think meet the excavator. So there's 3 options there once a notification has been made. See, the operator must do. And it depends on whether a facility is located or 1 or 2 apply, or 3 applies, a request in a meeting or something.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think we got our answer then. So on 70, on page 26 of our standards manual, it says, it states what an operator must do, or what an operator is required to do after a locate request is called in. And they use the term underground facilities. We just changed that. It's as simple as that. It does elaborate on abandoned later down in the rule. So there's no need to worry about that. But I think subsection A there, Josh, I think that's something that if an excavator in the place. Sorry, I'm jumping to 7.
I think that says a lot with no trace fire.
Yeah, we keep using the word underground facilities in Rule 70. We would have to change that to locatable facility, and then that would just solve that problem.
Yeah, that should solve that problem. I mean, you don't have a trace wire; it's not traceable. You don't have any trace wire on the poles. You don't have trace wire on the anchors, and grounding. It's coming on the same way. Like, most of the underground facilities, they, and poles, they have ground wires in the ground, correct? And so those are not traceable, correct? They don't have a trace wire to trace them. You can trace them.
Yeah, no, if anyone, I mean, we of course we'll have to go through this and look and see where else we may need to change that once we make that one change. Underground facilities, we do have it defined, but we also have what's locatable. So change it to that, and that goes away. Any objections?
Can you recap the proposed change, just so I have it and we have it in the minutes?
In 70, 952.001.0070 are operators to mark underground facilities or notify excavator if none exist on page 26. In throughout this rule, it references underground facilities, and we need to change that term to locatable facilities.
I would really like to, here again, we're back to the revised statute and our mandate to adopt rules insofar as practical to the standards manual. And so of 1995, and changing things without that scope and that reference, I think deserves another look. So Because when we're just changing, you know, stuff that's from underground facilities, not to include certain things that were agreed upon from the outset, in consistency with the standards manual of that time, I'm getting a
Where the
little.
standards manual. So help me understand, Kevin. Are you talking about this manual, or are you talking about some other manual? Because this manual supersedes, or it oversees any manual before it.
Okay,
So
well, if you don't want to include what's stated in the statute,
we've had to do away with stuff that's been in here that no longer applies.
okay.
So
well,
I mean,
it's part of our mandate. You know, I'm just looking at it from the standpoint of our mandate.
right, but this is what it's one and the same, right? This manual is one and the same.
No, it's asking us, the legislature is asking us to adopt rules insofar as practical to the manual of 1995, and we're messing with some language that's been in there since the beginning of the organization. So without that reference, I'm a little worried about changing things from underground facilities to just only including one type of facility and not the other. I think that is,
Well, I mean, we can speculate it. That's what we're here to do, Kevin. We're here to talk about it. So if we're not looking at it, I mean, that's what we're doing here, right?
Get it.
So let's look at the manual. Let's look at what you're talking about, because let's look at the history of it. I mean, is there anything in here? That's what we're supposed to be doing in this committee. Is there anything that would give us reason that we shouldn't change that? And yeah, we can look at it further. Jeff has said he's going to take a look at it and give me some information. In what I'm looking at as I'm reading it, locatable underground facilities is the definition. It means underground facilities which can be marked with reasonable accuracy. Telephone ped, a transformer, a pole, a anchor. Can they be marked with reasonable accuracy? Sure. Subsurface, no.
Well, and that's for the utility operator to decide. I mean, they can make those facilities locatable if they want to. But there's also a rule in there that says that they shall make them if there's locatable, if it's except for minor repairs, so forth. But what I'm getting at is just throwing out half of the types of facilities, and without reference to, the parameter of what we were given from the beginning. I'm just really asking for caution on that without look at it.
Right. No, I think we hashed through this and we worked through it enough to, the horse is dead half the time, or we just keep hacking at it.
Yeah.
So I think caution's there.
I think I'd also like the record to reflect that this issue was brought up due to a claim, and I would like that to be part of the record as well.
It's been part of the record from the beginning.
I mean, in the minute, that's what I'm hoping for. So, thank you.
Yeah. So my part on that is I agree, and I appreciate it, Kevin. On the side of caution, but being part of this committee is helping move us forward, right? So if you have these things that are concerned, that's great, and then we're going to take that into consideration, but kind of help us move forward with it. Maybe give us some insight on how you would go about changing it, or how you would go about this or that. That I think would help us a lot. So. Wrenches are always they're easy to throw, but into something. But we're just asking for a little help.
You don't have to change everything.
I'm sorry, Kevin, you're breaking up there.
I'd like some consideration too on just because something's been brought to the board that we need.
We're
Evan,
losing
you're
Kevin.
breaking up pretty bad.
All right, so looks like we got we paved a little bit of a road here. So I agree with Kevin. We should proceed with caution and review the rest of the manual or review all the rules. We have it all right here in front of us. So I'll get with a few of you after outside the committee and we'll talk about it. But we need to move on for time's sake. The tabled items are going to be not really in discussion today. The length of a ticket, just to recap for everyone, it's a 750-foot motion, 750-foot length, maximum length of a ticket, and that was the board coming together and putting a motion on the floor and it was accepted that we move forward with drafting language for that. It was, for the record, it was Kevin that recommended that we wait to see what ITIC, the new next gen, was going to do for us. And, you know, at this point, it's been about, I believe it's been about 8 months. You know, I think we talked about that in October. I think it was October is when Kevin had recommended that. And so I think the time is, you know, is right for us to revisit it. I do want to get this design locate request hashed out because I know it takes quite a bit of time to do this stuff in these calls. But we do have the 750-foot max length of the ticket that we need to address. Also, the white paint, the virtual white line, that was another one that was recommended that we see what results were coming from the next gen, the new system. You know, it hasn't gone full on yet. We're about to get there. So I think, you know, we push it a little bit and see where we're at. We got other, you know, fish to fry, you know, from a board standpoint, a lot of things that we got to take care of. So I won't be pushing so hard on that. We're not going to get the virtual white line out of it. The technology, I've seen the technology, I've looked at it. There's no way we're going to be able to get a virtual white line out of that. It's not concise or precise enough. There's too much room for error. White paint is going to be something that is going to need to be mandatory. Josh?
Yeah, to that end, I just wanted to note, and there's a complete side note, there was a contractor that reached out over a conflict with one of the utilities about thinking that the polygon was virtual white lining. It was their misunderstanding. And so we've explained to them that it is to provide the information to the operators, not to serve as a virtual white line. And Scott was roped in on that as well, so that we can make sure we communicate that when people are using the ITIC NXT system.
Mm-hmm. Right. It you know, the system itself is very helpful. It really is. It's night and day compared to what it was. Because before they, you know, the entire fairgrounds would be, you know, squared up, and all they needed was a small part by the armory, you know, right? So now they've got it to where they can piecemeal it and do it in multiple different ways. So it's good, but it's not concise enough to where if we're debating 10 feet or 20 feet, my virtual white line on this says that it's right here. Well, I mean, unless we can put the satellite image on it, but as soon as you start zooming down, you're not going to be able to get it within, you know. So reference information possibly, but we do have a motion to move forward drafting language for mandatory white paint. And we've had the discussion on whether it would be mandatory for homeowners, not mandatory for homeowners, and only for those that register as excavators, or across the board. It's been some discussion about it, but I want to get this NXT wrench dealt with before we move forward with those two things. And then, of course, paint remediation. I know that there was legislation that was, like I said earlier, was pointing towards us for us to change rule, or the legislation changed to put that responsibility on OUNC to deal with, is who's responsible for moving access paint or paint that gets put in place that shouldn't. Who's replacing driveways that just got finished, you know, or brand new, you know, and things like that. Because of an incident that happened down there. So the regulation of marking falls in our purview. So since it does, yes, that definitely would fall within, you know, our responsibility to say, hey, look, we don't have to come out and say exactly, hey, this, you're responsible for this. But, you know, it is the excavators that are requesting this. And in my personal opinion, all marks that are placed are requested by the excavator. The excavator should be responsible for any cleanup of those marks if they're requested to be cleaned up. That's my thought on it. I know Mitch has a different opinion, but
Of course.
I'm just giving a quick recap, Mitch. You sound really sick. We're going to move on. New business.
Thank you, Micah.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah.
So
I like your feedback, how fast you went through the virtual white line and how nobody likes it. And all my excavator likes it, especially when they put it out. And the locators, they don't have the, well, that's what you're trying to tell me, no?
No. Virtual white line is awesome. It's great. It is. I'm saying if we put it in rule as, let's take mandatory white paint out of rule and then put in virtual white line is the dig area. If we don't have the technology good enough to bring it within 20 feet, right?
Correct. Yeah. So I agree with that. The virtual white line, it's more, it actually narrowed down. Now all we got to do is just have the locators that are out in the field to have the equipment available with them to be able to see what the excavator spend time and put it into the ticket. So the next step will be, you know, most of the locators they do, but there's some of them they're still working on description, and you know we're trying to make the excavator or whoever's calling the locates to be more technical and give us the exact, but we have to understand that we got to bring the other part that's have to read what we put in, you know. That's one. And then, you know, as pain remediation, you know, my opinion, I mean, yeah, it's true. The excavator is asking to put the paint on the ground, but they didn't put it on the ground. Correct. So you ask an excavator to take paint out that they don't know what's on the ground. I completely, I mean, and again, we're trying to make a rule from one case that happened. We're trying to change the whole game. Correct? So I'm just, you know.
It's always been, California just changed their law. You know, maybe if the excavator doesn't want to clean that paint up, they can call the conglomerate that actually is contracting them to do the work, maybe Comcast, maybe you guys can pay for that.
So what they're gonna do, the excavator is gonna say, I'm sorry, we don't know what kind of paint. You know, when you painting down, you don't put down the label what you use, correct? So they don't know what you use and how can be removed, and that's gonna be on whoever put the paint on the ground.
Right. And I agree with you there. I think we do have some discussion around that. I don't want to get caught up in it today, Mitch, but yeah, I'm in agreement with you on that. I'm in agreement with you on that. And let me back up real quick on the virtual white line. I want to make it clear that in rule, if we were to put, you know, information as far as the call center has technology, let's just use the word technology. You must use the technology to pinpoint the exact area, right? Even if we put that language in there, which is great, because what you're saying, Mitch, is absolutely fantastic. And it's really helped locators out quite a bit on these long projects that you guys have. And so, I mean, I can't thank your excavators enough for doing that. But then again, you know, OCC for having this technology available too. But if we did put in a rule, that's what we would be putting. Does it have any teeth? Does it, you know, they're okay. So they want this. But what it does is it gives us a way to enforce it. Meaning, if it's in rule, it says technology at the call center, use the technology available to pinpoint the exact and precise location of work instead of description or description and the virtual element, right? Then we could use that if someone called the blanket locate in for 3,000 feet and they only dug in a certain area. Within the rules, they're calling in, you know, what they should, but if it's found that they only dug there, then it can be enforceable. So I can see where that would be the virtual white line part, just adding that to the, yeah.
I don't think the virtual white line was ever meant to replace the white line, but it was a tool to help the locator. That was not my intention to replace the white line, correct? But
so you want white paint?
Huh?
So you're
Sorry?
for mandatory white paint?
I'm not for mandatory white paint, and you know why not.
Okay.
And
I know.
I can give you 1,000 reasons why, it doesn't in Washington, it's mandatory, but if they don't do it, there's no, it's
Right.
the same like here. And then, you get a guy to put a sign for sale, and he's going to drive a truck all the way to the,
Yes, because the operators are required to go to every stop and every sign and mark that facility there. So in my opinion, absolutely yes. If they're requiring the operator to pay for a locate to be done one way or the other, then yes, it is their responsibility to go mark that in white and let us know exactly where they're digging, every single one.
I don't find the mute button to put mute on this.
All right.
Hi,
Well,
this is Kevin.
Does anybody else have anything to add to that? Because we're going to need to move on to new business here.
I'm sorry, this is Kevin. I have to join by phone now.
No, welcome back, Kevin.
Yes.
Oh, thanks. All right. Sorry I missed the conversation about virtual. Last I heard was, for the record, Kevin, and then it dropped off. So whatever you said is fine.
Well, hopefully we'll capture it in the minutes for you. Yeah, hopefully we'll get it all in minutes for you, Kevin. Okay, so moving on, they're not hearing anything. I don't see any hands. Okay. FAQs. Let's recap that really quick. Does anybody need a break real quick? We're going to muscle through these last few items, but if anyone needs a break, please let me know, and we can take a quick 10-minute break. Push through. Okay. I've got an interview at noon, so I'm hoping we can push through here. FAQs are in the back of the manual. Josh and I discussed this. Has always been an issue. Whenever rules are changed, sometimes the FAQs get neglected, and we always have people saying, "Oh, this doesn't coincide. This FAQ is referencing another one, but it's changed because we've had to go in there and try to change the number." That's not an issue. Okay, the changing of it, altering it, making changes to it is not an issue. It's the permanent document that everybody has in their hand that we can't change. So Josh and I hashed this out. And I know Kitty, we've had some discussion about it, and other board members, that we make the rules a separate document like this, statutes, rules, maybe some best practices, and then a couple of the pieces that need to be in here. That we would have in that, but the FAQs would be online, so that if there is any issues with it, we can change it, right then and there. Have the webmaster do the changes for us or whatever. I don't think that, I think FAQs are very important because they do kind of help those interpret our rules and how to navigate them. But unfortunately, we can't change this. It's like I said, and when I came on and I started to do these rule revisions, I was looking at a manual that wasn't the same as what we had filed in 2014 at the Secretary of State. So I needed to go to the governor's office, and find that document just so we could use it and get it right for this time around. FAQs moving virtual and out of the manual moving forward would help us out. Is there any opposition to that? Anybody think the FAQ should still be in a manual that we provide? Okay.
Is this really an OAR thing, or is it an outreach question? And stakeholdership interest in, do they use them? I'm not sure why it's part of this agenda, because it seems like an outreach thing.
I don't know, it's all in one book. That's why. So I can bring it to the board and push it onto outreach, but at that point I say separate it. If that's what we're wanting to do with it, just separate it all together, and then we can have that as labeled something differently, on our website, or provide a different pamphlet. Josh?
Yeah, just briefly, I like the idea of putting a link or a QR code or both in the standards manual to the frequently asked questions, and then we maintain them on the website. So if things change on the fly, whatever they go to, it's current. And then I also put in the chat a link to Texas 811's FAQs. At CGA, I asked around, and that seemed to be one of them that people pointed their fingers to and said it'd be a good one to take a look at. And they do separate it out into categories. They have general, safe digging, DIYers for the homeowners, professional excavators, and members. So I think we could cover a lot of bases with that, including what's already in the standards manual.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, let's make sure that's in the minutes, that link there.
I like it. I saw that, and it looks really good, and it's away from, you know, there's a lot of things that we can do on the website, correct? Like, you know, but we can discuss that on a different call, Josh.
Yeah, no, I'll take this to the board as far as the FAQs, present what we've got. We're not bringing it into committee. It'll be handled outside. I don't agree with Kevin. It doesn't need to be. I mean, it can be handled outside of it. But it is new business, so new header code for pipe ID. Is on for new business. I know that's something that was, you know, was brought up at the board meeting, and I just want to make sure it was here. Do we have any thoughts on that? It'll be, we're going to vote on this as a committee here. We, you know, to bring this in as an item to discuss. I think, or vet first, and then we can work on it if the board sees fit that we need to work on it. You know, it's really not anything with the rules, but you know, where else are we going to discuss a header code? I mean, we did make a decision on removing certain header codes in the committee. Hate to just fire up an ad hoc just for header code pipe ID. I'm going to need to push this interview on to someone else here just a Okay. All right. So I'm not hearing anything about this. Is there any, I quite frankly, I can't remember exactly where it came from as far as pipe ID. Does anybody else? I know that that when an excavator comes across a particular pipe, it's unmarked there to call the call center. That's what our rules state. And does that mean calling in to locate? Then you have locators responding that really can't identify what that is a lot of the time. Even if the locator is the operator themselves. So they may not be qualified for that particular thing. Changing the header code would be notifying, the way I understand it is a header code would notify the operator that they have to, you know, respond to or call to help identify an unmarked facility or a facility found that was unmarked.
So, Micah,
yeah,
if we don't know where this came from, I don't remember anything about it. And the person that brought it up is maybe not here, so I would say we table this.
Okay. You say we leave it in move it to old business?
Yeah.
Or just
does anyone else have an issue with that? Yeah, because I don't remember where this came from.
Okay.
Keep it on the agenda.
Yep, I'll move it to old business and we're moving on. Thanks, Melanie. Okay. This one I forgot was on here. Discuss financial responsibility of excavator during large scale projects. This isn't really, this was something that was brought to my attention. Another locate company, for the record, that stated when large projects take place, there's a large demand for resources that aren't there. They can't expect. Our laws don't acknowledge that. There's no acknowledgement for that. Operators are paying for every ticket that's called in, whether it's redundant, whether the excavator's not maintaining paint, or a design person or someone's calling in 2 business day tickets because they want the marks when they know it's going to be dry. What I was told that yesterday is why he doesn't call surveys in. He calls in 2 business day tickets for that reason. But where's the responsibility to reciprocate some of that from the operators essentially having to pay for all of this? They're having to pay for that locator that works for their locate department, or whatever that department is. They're paying for their wages or overtime. There's costs associated with that locator having to go out and do a 30% increase in work over this course of this quarter or whatever. They're not only paying for that, they can be paying for a contractor, and they're also paying the tariff on each one of those tickets that are being processed, that or otherwise shouldn't. So this was brought to my attention, like I said, by another management personnel and another locate company that said that they would like to see, and that the OUNC address this. Now, I myself didn't think it was within the purview, but I wanted to bring it up nonetheless. They're not here today. I thought they were going to be here to help elaborate on it. But the excavator, when calling in these large areas, my understanding is to share some of that responsibility, financial burden, and as an answer, it's not so you're going to be reluctant to call in that much. You're going to be reluctant. You're going to be very frugal with your locate requests if you're paying for 30% of that, in some way, shape, or form or fashion. And I said, from my locator sat and the operator's end of it, that's great. It really does make sense. It does, and I think it's 30 years from now. I think they're way ahead of their time. Maybe 20, way ahead of their time, but nonetheless, it's something to definitely think about. Not within our purview, definitely. So since they're not here,
I would have to agree with you.
Yeah,
I'm going to agree with you on that one. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I would like to understand. Whomever brought this up, I would like to understand what their side of the story, though.
Okay, I can definitely let you know. I can reach out to you. They're not here, so I don't want to, for the record, anything.
Right.
For names. They may have wanted to back out, but.
So Micah, the way that you sound, it's if I give you more work, I have to pay you more, or something like that. That's how it looks like. So if somebody's going to give you more work, you're going to come back and say, if you give me more work, you got to pay me more.
The reason, right, but think about it like this: the law states that you have to market no matter what. But what happens if that operator does not have those resources? Okay, they're used to locating this area or this city, and status quo goes. Comcast moves in.
Do you guys participate? Do you guys participate in all the city projects? Do you guys participate in all the city new developments? Because they are years prior for big projects to come in.
Right, but
so you guys should be involved in cities and projects, and you should go to their hearings, and you should get emails that will saying, hey, okay, this company proposed in 1 year to do this or do that. and there are terms that the city apply, and that, you know, you follow the whatever, you know, the requirements are, and then, you know,
Yeah, there's utility coordinating councils, and also there's county meetings that we have that we go to and stuff. I know I get the emails for, so I'm up to, but projects get canceled. I can't hire staff based upon, you know, a design or a proposal that may or may not, you know. So what this does, all I'm saying is the reason it was brought to me is that we have a rule that really puts all of the responsibility and liability on the operator. You have to mark all of these locates, and you have to do it now. We need all the marks now. And if you don't, we're going to file complaints on you because you can't get them all done within 2 business days. The rules state that they have to do that, and that's tough to do. That's all I'm saying. That's why it was brought to me, because it was, you know, had to do with rules. That's all. If excavators aren't held responsible for how many locates they're being called in, then they don't care. The individual that I, you know, and this is something just off. The individual I talked to yesterday didn't really care. I've got my job to do. This is what I'm doing, and this is how I'm going to do it. That's what I was told before I was hung up on. Unfortunately, I had to, you know, ask him, look, I'm really trying to get some information because I'm trying to work on this and you know, at the board level on the survey design, and I was actually able to have a conversation with the guy. But that's where we're at. So I will scratch it and save it for a rainy day. Or unless that person reaches back out to me, and I'll talk to you about it, Melanie, offline. Okay, so review required locate request for OCC. Okay, yes. Okay, so going back to what we spoke to earlier, I said that I had a situation where there was 3,500 feet of rototilling, just the top of the asphalt of the road. They called in for locates. We explained to them the rule, and they said, I don't see it. I don't see where I don't have to call in locates here. He goes, I'd love to not to, because all we're doing is, you know, taking the base off, and then, you know, we're not even going down to gravel. We're just taking the top off and then just relay it, the asphalt. But nonetheless, we marked it and got the job done for them over the course of a couple of days there. But I was hoping that maybe we could help callers or those that are submitting a ticket understand what they should be calling a locate in for. I'm not asking that. I don't think we should be asking OCC to be the locate police. Okay. Although they are us, and we're not the locate police either. But in the same token, if we had just a pop-up that said right at the beginning before they fill a ticket, reference that rule that if you're digging less than 12 inches, in the definition of, you know, OAR, rototilling, sidewalk, ditch maintenance, you know, if you're doing any of these less than 12 inches, you know, I think if we had that there, that a lot of it would help educate those that may need or may not need. I know the county out here, they used to do it for years, and it was a couple of years ago they finally stopped calling locates in for the ditching. And that was numerous times to tell them, look, you know, I mean, there's utilities there, you know, but you have rules here that allow you to do the job under rules. So that was something that I wanted to bring up myself. Am I interpreting that wrong? Am I interpreting that rule wrong? Okay, so why do we have it?
Micah, can I add something?
Why is the definition there if it doesn't mean that you don't have to, you know, call a locate in? Or am I again misinterpreting?
I will be careful with this one. It's trouble. Because if we say if you dig less than 12 inch, you don't need to go locate.
No. That's not what I'm saying. I would never say let's do that. I'm saying quote the rule.
Okay.
Quote the rule as we have it in here, because evidently we wanted to be as gray as possible in here to mislead when we made that rule. This is why I don't like that rule, because it's not a rule. Unless somebody can explain and help me interpret it, I guess, better, and I'm all ears on that. Because I read it.
I see this as an outreach opportunity, and if Scott would.
Okay, outreach about what? That's what I'm trying to get at, Kevin. Outreach about what? What are we outreaching?
Well, you opened it up with trying to suggest that maybe we can get the call center to give them a message. So I'm putting it in the bucket of outreach. I don't know how it's fitting into the OAR committee, but what I'm trying to suggest that is if Scott gets us the data points that I requested to shed some light on how the facility, or excuse me, how the call center is being used, we can do some very specific targeted outreach to those that are calling in locates that might not need it, and they might need, something, else to consider. But I caution on putting up a pop-up with the rule, because a lot of them have the standards manual already. So I'm looking at this as an outreach opportunity, and no disrespect to the OAR committee.
I understand that. I think in hopes of trying to, yeah, okay. I'll leave it at that. I appreciate it, Kevin. Anyone else on that?
Well, Mike, I think it says clear in the book when you need to call a locate and when you don't. And we have one exception when you don't have to, or it does state clearly, you don't have to call locate if you less than X amount, correct? It says in the law. But there are like 4 points that you need to in order for you not to call in. You don't have to be in the right of way. You have to be on the private property. You have to be the owner of the private property in order for you to dig. And there's a lot of stuff. So that, you have a check mark to make in order for you not to call in. And I thought the only exception was for the road when they get repaved and they grind that 3-inch down, they don't have to. And I think we give another exception on cleaning the existing underground facility inside the facility enclosure. And I don't think there's another exception. Otherwise, you got to call 811.
Okay, so your understanding is that there is no exception.
So the only exception, if you don't have to call, it's in the book. If you don't have to call 811, I know there was the rate, repave the road. That's like 4-inch grinding down the old cement and put new one, repave. But then it says like this, less than 12-inch private property, you have to be the owner of I believe so. No right of way. You can, if you're 1 foot in the right of way, you got to call 811 no matter what.
That's different.
I'm going to look in the books because I know I look at this one. I mean, I'm doing, 10, 12,000 drops a year that I'm less than 12-inch. I'm 8-inch, correct? And I trench all of them. But because I go from a pedestal, which is in the right of way, I am required by law to call 811 on those. Mm-hmm. Okay. And not only that, it's because I'm not the owner that it's digging in that property. Okay. So the only one that doesn't, it's like the homeowner that's digging on his own property and he's digging only 6-inch and he's not in the right of way, he's allowed not to call 811. Otherwise, if he goes more than 12-inch, he hits the right of way, it's putting a fence against the right of way, something that he has to. It's not an exception. And it does says that, I don't have the manual in front of me, but if you look at the standard manual, it's there. They're all points. When do you don't need to call locates?
Okay.
Trying to find my manual in my book here, but
Okay. Well, I'll let you do that there. And then when you do, check out page 21 and look at the definition for sidewalk, road, and ditch maintenance for me. But we're going to move on from that. I'm going to push this to old business. We'll discuss it again at our next meeting. If that's, we need to decide a direction on what we want to do there. You know, do we want to, I will not say that. We'll move it to old business. Okay, so we do have the last thing on here is regulatory reporting, put together information data request for PUC. Now, I think, you know, my opinion about this, since we're moving items to possible other committees or other areas, this may be one that we create a committee for and have that committee meet to discuss and come up with what the expectation is for the PUC and, you know, for the information. I really do think that should take place. I don't want to handle that inside this committee, and I think it's separate. I want to be able to devote time for that and not have to worry about, you know, working on OAR items and then that. So this committee's taken on a lot in the past, and I'll take a page out of Kevin's book there, and let's put it on to an ad hoc committee if the board chooses to. So I will report on that. Any objections to that? I'm sorry, I just don't know where a lot of this stuff should go. You know, we talk about it at the board meeting, and I feel it needs to be addressed. So I move it to here so that we can figure out what we're doing with it, and then, you know.
I agree with you. Take it to the board, see what they think. But yes, definitely, probably an ad hoc committee.
Okay.
I drafted up just a quick bullet points of what I thought we'd need, and I was going to share that with the executives, so maybe I'll send that and then go from there.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Josh. Okay, so I appreciate everyone joining today. It's great to see Lee, you joining, and it's great. Jim, thanks for hopping on, and Jeff, as always. You know, Andy, of course. I appreciate everybody here. We need it. You know, if we come as a committee together and start making some, you know, good, solid, you know, decisions on things to recommend to the board, I think we'll be in a better position to get some of this stuff pushed through. Just a few people just doesn't get it done. So thanks again, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn if nobody has anything else.
So moved.
Okay, we got a adjourn. We got a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, state the same. Okay, hearing none, motion passes. We meeting adjourned. Again, thanks everybody.
Thanks, Micah.
thank Micah. Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Kitty.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Josh, did you
Josh,
need
I'm
me to hang on for anything?
No, I'll send that on, and then I've got a lot of notes to go back through for follow-up. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Have a great day.
You too.
Josh, I'm going to call you. Guys,